will now turn this call over to Vice President of Communications at Showtime Sports, Chris DeBlagio.
Thank you, Kira. Good afternoon to the press. As you may have seen moments ago, we sent out a news release announcing a brand new deal between our organizations at Strikeforce and Showtime, which kicks off an exciting new partnership. We will all begin January 7th, 2012, so just a few weeks away, when Strikeforce presents a middleweight championship fight between defending champ Luke Rockhold against Keith Jardine, live on Showtime at 10 p.m. from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. That special event, which kicks off this new deal, is part of Showtime's free preview weekend. Aforementioned free preview weekend makes the Showtime signal available in some 60 million homes nationwide. So couldn't be a better time to announce this deal and to be here with you all today. We thank you for jumping on this call on short notice. Joining us on the call, our brand new Executive Vice President and General Manager for Showtime Sports, Steven Espinoza, UFC President Dana White, and Strikeforce CEO Scott Coker, who is standing by in San Diego, where he's about to kick off at 1 p.m. Pacific the final press conference for Gil Melendez's lightweight championship title defense this Saturday on Showtime at a special time of 10:30, all from the Valley View Casino there in San Diego. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Steven, ask for a couple of opening comments on this exciting announcement before we go to questions.
Greetings to all. Welcome. This is my first official press obligation, press responsibility here. And I couldn't be more excited that this is really the first official press event. Showtime and Strikeforce have a long history, mutually beneficial and supportive relationship, and we're very happy that that continues. And actually, we're continuing to build upon that foundation in this new structure.
Terrific. Thanks, Steven. Operator, do we have questions in queue?
Our first question comes from the line of Sergio Non with USA Today.
Hi. Thanks for taking the time today. Just a few questions. I'm not sure who would answer these, but the first thing I'm wondering is, so is the Challengers circuit now gone? It doesn't seem like it's mentioned in the press release.
It's Steven. I'll take that one. What we've decided to do is actually to, in a sense, consolidate the programming. We're going to have the preliminaries airing on Extreme, immediately preceding the televised main event and primary undercard fights on the primary network. And whether or not they'll be called Challengers or not is still something to be discussed. We thought it made more sense for the consistency of the production, for the cohesiveness of the event, that we do it all and make it one huge night of programming and serve the MMA fans, throughout the evening.
And will you be continuing with the current broadcast team?
We have a very deep team in this. Gus Johnson, Mauro Ranello, Pat Miletich, Frank Shamrock, Stephen Quadros. We're in the process of determining the pairings, which will continue essentially the way we've done in the past. It'll be based on schedules and each show, so nothing really is changing in that area.
And this is a question that perhaps Dana might be best positioned to answer. Many Strikeforce fighters have expressed a desire to compete with their UFC counterparts. Will that happen under this deal or not?
Well, I didn't say yet, but I think you guys get it. And all the times that I've wanted to talk about this Strikeforce Showtime deal over the last several weeks, I'm fired up about this deal. And let me put it this way: I've got the guys in Strikeforce fired up about it too. So I'm very involved in this, and the guys who are fighting in Strikeforce are going to be very happy to be there.
So is that a yes or a maybe or?
That's a hell yes. Okay.
And finally, perhaps Scott could answer this. Given that Strikeforce doesn't have a heavyweight champion right now, will the winner of the Grand Prix be named the new heavyweight champion of Strikeforce? Or?
No. Actually, I think I should just bring it out there that, Strikeforce, we're going to focus on our other weight classes. We have a great lightweight division, welterweight, middleweight, and light heavyweight. And we're going to focus on the women's divisions, which you'll see after the event. with the tournament finals between Daniel Cormier and Josh Barnett is you'll see one more fight where the winner will fight a top-rated heavyweight, and then we're going to go back to focusing on our other weight classes.
Okay. Top-rated heavyweight, meaning perhaps someone from the Ultimate Fighting Championship?
You know what? Right now, nothing is determined, but we're definitely going to have some dialogue, with Sean and everybody else in Vegas to determine who that heavyweight will be. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Steve Sadler. From Ariel Helwani with NBCSports.com.
Hey guys, I guess this would be a question for either Dana or Mr. Espinoza. How many years is this deal for?
We are, it's Steven. We are going to be looking at 6 to 8 events this year, and there are options for additional events beyond that. At this point, we're not sort of going to air all the intricacies of the agreement going forward, so there's some parts that we'd rather keep between the business parties.
All right, and I just wanted to clarify something that Scott said. So does that mean that after the heavyweight Grand Prix final, all the heavyweights, or I guess the heavyweights that the UFC wants to bring over, will be moving over to the UFC?
No, that's not what he's saying. Basically what's happening is, if you look at this, we're going to be doing between 6 to 8 fights a year, which when you look at when the UFC first started, we were doing 5. And we're going to focus on some key weight classes and the women's divisions. And after this tournament happens, they're going to do one more heavyweight fight, and then they're going to do away with the heavyweight division. You guys have heard me say this for years. Heavyweight divisions aren't deep enough to create this huge division. So we're going to focus on the weight divisions that are strong. Back in the day, our 155-pound division didn't exist. We focused on the weight classes that we had and that we could build strong champions and contenders in.
So does that mean the winner of the Grand Prix and some of the other heavyweights will be moving over to the UFC?
I have no idea what's going to happen with that yet. We'll see.
And is the heavyweight division the only division that is falling under that sort of that sort of regard, or is also the light heavyweights? Like, which weight classes will 100% be in Strikeforce, or do you not know?
All of them, including the women, except for the heavyweight division. The way we look at it, again, every weekend, you guys are asking me about the women's division and women, and the fans are always terrorizing me on Twitter about the women's division. The women's division is very popular. We're going to keep it.
And for you, Dana, how did this deal come about? Because it seemed like for a while things weren't looking good, and then it sort of ramped up almost out of nowhere, and now it seems like everyone's very excited. So what needed to be done in order for you to feel comfortable with the deal and extending it?
Well, I wouldn't say that it hasn't been looking good since the day that I told you guys that I flew out to New York and met with everybody. Since I made that meeting out in New York, everything's been good. It's just taken a long time to get this thing together and announce the deal.
Okay, and one last question about weight classes for anyone out there. Will there continue to be 2 women's division weight classes, or will there just be one and try to mix everyone together?
Yeah, this is Scott, Ariel. We're going to continue to run the 2 divisions, and we're going to go out there and scour the planet, get the best females in the world, and bring them to Strikeforce on Showtime.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations.
So basically what that means is we're keeping one division and Cyborg.
Our next question
Go ahead.
Our next question comes from the line of Dave Meltzer with Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, I sort of was going to ask about the same thing. I mean, there's been talk of like Cyborg moving to 135, and Ronda Rousey, who's been fighting at 145, has talked about moving to 135. So it sounds like you're trying to, congregate, the name fighters in one division. I mean, and is that kind of the idea, or is Cyborg going to stay in her division?
Both divisions both will stay, Dave. But again, you guys hear me talk about this all the time, the depth in some of these divisions, and I would say Cyborg's division has that problem. But she's a huge star. She's a champion. We're going to keep that division. People are excited to see her fight, so we're going to keep it.
And like with this sort of was addressed, but I'm just in the specific with Gilbert Melendez and fighting on Saturday night. What's the possibilities if he were to win this fight and a couple more of going and fighting, whether it's a Ben Henderson or a Clay Guida or the champion, in 2012? I mean, is it something that you're considering, something that's going to happen if he's successful, or something that's not going to happen?
I can tell you this: Gilbert Melendez is pumped to stay in Strikeforce. He's one of the big stars in Strikeforce. If he wins his next fight and the next fight after that, he will continue to defend his belt in Strikeforce, and he's absolutely fucking excited about it. Just so you know.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Our next question comes from the line of Steven Morocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Most of my questions have been asked, but I just had a quick one. One of the main things that was talked about in Strikeforce before the purchase was the possibility of going to pay-per-view, and I know with the new deal things are probably still pretty fresh, but is that even a thought at this point, or am I getting too ahead of myself here? Is it basically about the TV deal and you guys are going to stay on TV and pay-per-view is kind of not really happening at this point?
Well, I would never say never to pay-per-view, but we did this deal with Showtime to put the fights on Showtime. Who knows? There could be an opportunity where us and Showtime think that we could do a pay-per-view and a fight should be pay-per-view. Maybe we would. I don't know. I'm not saying we would or we wouldn't, but this is a fight deal for these fights to air on Showtime.
And how do these events sort of coexist with the current boxing schedule, and what's sort of the plan of sort of integrating them together in 2012?
Well, I'm not sure in terms of integrating. Do you mean sort of that on the same night, or just sort of integrating programming as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, on the same night, piggybacking them with each other, basically.
It's something that selectively we would certainly consider, when it made sense. But, as it stands right now, we're contemplating doing, at least 4 hours of programming in the same night on just an MMA. So as much as, we all love our boxing and MMA programming, there comes a point where it might be a little bit of overload. But having said all of that, love to be creative. We love to be aggressive. Dana's obviously got a track record of doing, things which are, against the grain and blowing things out. And we'd love to be along for the ride if we can come up with something creative like that.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Now, one of the things I love that these guys are doing is, this free preview. It's going to be open to 60 million homes. So it's a chance for people to tune in, check out the new Strikeforce, check out Showtime, and it's going to be free. So it's Saturday, January 7th. I know you guys have the release, but just reminding you of that one. And now we're going to show all the prelims on Showtime Extreme. So now all the fights will be aired from Strikeforce on Showtime Extreme, and then switch over to Showtime.
Our next question comes from the line of Damon Martin with MMAWeekly.com.
First question, I guess, as we go out to Scott and Dana, is the title situation in Strikeforce. Right now we don't have a welterweight champion or light heavyweight champion. How soon can we see those titles go to new people, or how will that be determined?
You can take that, Scott.
Yeah, basically, when you think about the fights that we're having, even the Saturday and the fights we're having in January, it's eventually going to lead to the title fights in the weight classes that you're speaking about. So, we're going to put some fights together and start working towards a title in each one of those divisions.
And you mentioned before with the division, so the four weight classes on the men's side and then the 2 on the women's side, there's not going to be any additional right now? Is it just focusing on those 6 right now then, basically?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And then as far as the scheduling goes with 8 shows, how is that going to be determined as far as the year goes? Is it going to be, every couple months? Are you going to be piling them on more in one part of the year or the other? How are you going to do the scheduling with the 8 shows? Is it going to be just kind of like the old days where it was every couple months, or is it still to be determined when those shows will be?
Yeah, it still has to be determined. I mean, we had to sit down with Showtime and get our schedules all linked up because they're very busy as well with their, boxing and NASCAR and football and all their other sports. So we're going to sit down with them in the near future and put a plan together as far as the dates.
And then one last
from the Showtime perspective, we've got a long history with Strikeforce. Scott has always been great in terms of coming up with mutually beneficial dates. So it'll be, when the timing works for the events themselves. Sort of organically, we always seem to work it out.
And then one last question, I guess, for Dana and Scott is, the running of Strikeforce on a day-to-day basis. How's it going to work? I know, Dana, you mentioned over the weekend that you're going to be more involved with Strikeforce now. How is that going to work with the day-to-day operations? Who's going to be kind of in charge, or who's going to be running the show?
Well, Scott and the crew at Strikeforce run the day-to-day, and obviously I'm involved. I'm involved in both this side and, creatively on the Showtime side too. So and leading up to the events, I will be at Strikeforce events. I will be when there's a Strikeforce event happening on a Saturday. I will work on the Showtime event just like I do a UFC event.
Excellent. Thanks very much, guys.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of Richard Hunter with KRLD Radio in Dallas.
Yeah, question for Dana. Dana, in years past, when the UFC was talking to HBO about doing something, or you weren't particularly happy with the old regime at Showtime, now that the network deal is in place with Fox at UFC, was it much easier to decide to make this decision and see the vision moving forward for Strikeforce after the UFC had decided to go with Fox? Because it seems like for Zuffa, this is kind of the best of both worlds, because you're able to have a network arm with the Fox deal in UFC, and then you're also able to have a premium cable deal with Strikeforce.
No, actually not at all. The reality is exactly like your question started. I did not have a good relationship with the old regime, and I have a good relationship with the new regime. We went in there, I flew out, we sat down, we talked, we worked this deal out, we kicked some ideas back and forth, and I love what we came up with, and I'm sure you can tell, I am genuinely excited about this. I would not be involved, I would not be this enthusiastic about it if I wasn't happy with the deal.
One more question, Dana. Would it be fair to assume, we're obviously talking about a superstar like Gilbert Melendez, whether he would move up or stay with Strikeforce? That seems to be decided. But is it safe to assume that on the flip side of that, if there's a UFC fighter that is in years past might be facing a cut, that this might be an alternative to an outright cut, that we could see him fight in Strikeforce?
People always ask those kind of questions. If you cut this guy, would he go there or would he go there? I mean, if you look at the way that the mixed martial arts world works, there's this talent pool that exists out there. New guys coming up, guys who have been around for a long time, guys who have some star power, can sell tickets, can do this, whatever the deal is. It's pretty much the same in how it works anywhere. A guy, when he loses so many fights in a row, he goes away, he fights somewhere else, and he comes back. I mean, it's not that guys that get cut would go over there, or guys that leave there would come over here. We're always looking for the same thing, no matter what organization we're running. We're looking for the best fighters in the world. Whoever they are at that time, those are the guys we're going after, and those are the guys we're going to sign. And there could always be a situation where a guy left the UFC, but he's won his last 3 or 4 fights, and he makes it all, he gets into Strikeforce, or another guy gets into the UFC. We're running both companies, and both companies are looking for the same thing, the best fighters in the world.
So case-by-case basis, no strict policy one way or another?
Nah, I mean, we're going to run the business just like we do over here. It's exactly the same. It works the same here as it does over there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Mike Chiappetto with MMAWeekly.com.
Dana, would this deal have gotten done if the old regime was still in charge? I mean, do you think Strikeforce would be dead without that?
I don't know. Obviously it didn't go well when it was. It probably wouldn't have, but there's no. Listen, let's just cut the bullshit. Me and Ken Hirschman aren't fans of each other. He's not a fan of mine. I'm not a fan of his. He's not there anymore. I flew out there. I like these guys. We did a deal. Period. End of story.
Okay, and with this new schedule now, it's going to be only 6 to 8 events a year. How is that going to affect the Strikeforce roster? I don't know how many fighters you have right now on the roster, but how will that affect it? I don't know if either Dana or Scott wants to answer that one.
Well, I don't know what you mean by affect the roster.
Well, I guess if you're going to be running less Strikeforce events, I mean, are you going to have less fighters on the roster?
Well, if you look at, like I said earlier, if you look at how when we first bought the UFC, we were doing 5 shows a year for the first couple of years. And as that started growing, that's why you had to cut out one of these weight divisions. And if you look at Cyborg's division, it's not a very deep division with a lot of talent. There's going to be some fights that we can make for Cyborg. There's going to be some fights you can make in the other women's divisions, and you can stack the other divisions deep with talent, because that's what you have to do. In order to run a show and establish champions with great contenders, you have to have deep. You got to go deep in every one of those weight divisions. So the answer is yes. That we will be able to. Not only will we be able to keep our roster, we'll be able to sign more guys.
Okay. And for Steven Espinoza, please, in 2011, Showtime and N1 had a deal where you guys broadcasted 4 N1 events. I know that came to an end with the last one. Does this deal now with Strikeforce preclude M1 from being on Showtime? Is there any chance that deal could be extended or not?
It is a possibility. That's certainly not our focus at this point. Our focus here was getting the deal done with Strikeforce. That has been our primary relationship, our most important relationship, up to this point. And as for an M1 deal or other deals, we'll sort of play it out and see how that continues.
Okay, and one last question, maybe for Scott. The Grand Prix final, is there a date that you're looking at for that now? Maybe March? Is there anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, it's not confirmed yet, but we're looking still to promote that fight at the end of first quarter.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Our next question comes from the line of Ken Pishno with MMAWeekly.com.
Hi, guys. This question's for Dana. I'm going to kind of come off sounding like the wet blanket here, probably. But, Dana, you've been very excited about this deal and talking about it at recent UFC events. But so far, we haven't really heard a lot of anything that sounds really new about this deal, other than it is a new deal with Showtime, obviously. But what are the specific elements about this deal that have you so excited about the future of Strikeforce and Showtime?
Well, obviously, because I'm involved now, I'm behind it 100%, and I love stuff like that. I love getting involved with networks and getting in with Showtime, taking this thing and building it. I like taking, we're going to bring in, create all this talent, bring these guys in. There's only so many people that can fight in the UFC. There's only so many people that we can have and hold and everything else. It's getting bigger because we're doing more fights all over the world. But when we have, this Strikeforce deal and all these things, I take these guys in, we're going to build these stars, we're going to put on great, exciting fights, and I love to pull big numbers. I love to get in and do the things that we're working on with Showtime right now. Opening this thing up to 60 million people and letting them check it out. Getting in there and making some tweaks to the production and making this show the best it can possibly be on Showtime. And then, first of all, I went to that Showtime fight down in the Strikeforce fight down in San Diego last time. It was awesome. It was a great event, and I want to get on Showtime. I want to blow this thing up, and I want to build their numbers and build this thing into a machine. That's what I get excited about, and that's what I love to do.
So is it basically kind of the challenge that, you've taken the UFC to such a level, you and the Fertittas, and you still have a lot of room to take the UFC even higher, but is it kind of that whole entrepreneurial side of...
You guys know, you guys have been dealing with me for 10 years. This is what I love to do. This is what I love to do. This is the shit that gets me out of bed in the morning, and coming in, the Showtime guys and Scott Coker, the thing that everybody laughs at, but it's true. It's business as usual for these guys. These guys are coming in and they're doing what they do. They've had this relationship for a long time. I'm getting involved in this thing and I'm excited about it. I'm going to get behind it 100%. And like I said, we're going to get in. We're going to do some fun stuff, make some tweaks, and see how big we can make this thing.
What kind of crossover can we expect out of UFC and Strikeforce fighters?
No clue. This whole thing is like a work in progress. But like I said to the guy before this, we're both looking for the same thing. We're both going after the best fighters in the world. There's a lot of guys that are shut out of this thing. If you think about it, look at what we just did down in Brazil. Lorenzo and I just flew down there for the last 3 days. And we had to go through this screening process and screened it down to 400 and something guys to try out for the Ultimate Fighter. And the guys down there trying out for the Ultimate Fighter, some of these guys have records like 15-2, 14-1, 13-1. There's guys out there, well-seasoned guys all over the world. There's a ton of talent, more and more talent popping up every day, and there's only so many slots to fill. So there's a lot of great fighters out there that we can bring into Strikeforce, build this incredible division in each weight class, and put on great fights. It's awesome. This is what I love to do.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Matthew Ross with BloodyElbow.com.
Hi, Dana. You told us that you're going to be planning on running 34 shows next year. Does this now bring Zuffa up to 42 shows for 2012?
Does it? Does that bring us up to 40-something? What's that put us at?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it puts us about 40 shows.
For the year.
40 shows for the year?
Yeah. My schedule next year is ridiculous. People don't even think it's going to be humanly possible, but I disagree.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Our next question comes from the line of Greg DeLong with ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dana, one of the things you talked about with getting the deal on Fox was obviously the concession, Zuffa having control of production and working with Fox. Was that one of the things about this deal that once you got involved was, did Showtime give some concessions? Are we going to see the same type of production, or is Zuffa going to have more input into the production?
Yeah, when we went down and talked to the guys at Showtime, I didn't say, I'm not doing this deal unless I control production and all that stuff. These guys have been putting on the show for a long time. I'm comfortable with what they're doing, but I am involved. Dave Dinkins and I are going to sit down here in Las Vegas, and we're going to walk through some things and make some changes and do some fun stuff. This isn't an ego competition or anything like that. It's two guys who are passionate about what they do, wanting to make it the best show it could possibly be. That's what we're going to do.
And this is even from the Showtime perspective. It's not really about who controls what and who can tell anybody else what to do. We view this as a partnership. It's a joint venture, essentially, not in the legal sense, but in the effort and energy and creativity sense. So we're going to come up with the best possible programming that all of our collective organizations can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed. I agree with that 100%.
Operator?
Our next question.
Do you have any more questions?
Our next question comes from the line of John Morgan with MMAJunkie.com.
Thank you. Dana, if I could please, I guess you brought up a lot of good points about, bringing on more people and more opportunities, but ultimately, why was this the right deal to make for Zuffa and the UFC? I mean, you've worked so hard to build the UFC brand, and now you're going to have to work just as hard to kind of build this secondary brand simultaneously. So why ultimately is this the right move for you guys?
Because it is. We sat down and we sat down. We worked this thing out. We talked about it. This thing is dialed in perfectly now for success. This thing is absolutely doable. When we had the Challenger Series and all these other fights that had to be done, the thing was set up to fail. It was set up to fail. We got together. We figured this thing out. We dialed it in and narrowed it down to key certain weight classes, the things that people still want. Let me tell you what, Strikeforce goes away, the women aren't fighting. It's not going to happen. We're not doing the women's division in the UFC right now. This thing, Strikeforce offers a ton of that opportunity to build all kinds of new talented stars, champions and contenders, and keep the women's division alive. It offers something that the UFC doesn't have and wouldn't have if Strikeforce went away.
And not to nitpick, but let's be real clear. Strikeforce is not a secondary brand. Luke Rockhold is not a secondary fighter. And Chris Cyborg is not a secondary fighter. Gina is not a secondary. And Gilbert's not a secondary fighter. I mean, this is a top-tier organization. It was a top-tier organization and a brand, when Scott was operating it independently from Zuffa. And it'll continue to be, now that they're in partnership with Zuffa.
And that actually was going to be my next question, so maybe if I can get you to follow up on that a little bit more. So what efforts do you make to make that clear to people? I know there was a lot of concern when Zuffa bought Strikeforce that Strikeforce would be looked at as a B-level brand. I mean, how do you get over that hump and educate the public that it's not a secondary brand?
It's going to become clear once we start to build contenders and champions and all these things. People already want Gilbert Melendez to fight for the title in the UFC, and as every title holder is established in Strikeforce, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have the people who fall on either side. This guy would definitely beat that guy in the UFC. That guy in the UFC would beat this guy in Strikeforce. It happens. I mean, I got these lunatics thinking that these guys in Japan can win fights over here, for Christ's sakes. You don't think they're going to think that it happens all the time. Believe me, Strikeforce guys are going to be legitimate champions and legitimate contenders in any weight class anywhere in the world.
Well, now that we're out publicly with this, I think it'll be, as Dana said, very clear, very shortly. Once you see the events and see the quality of the events, it's going to be, continued high quality, world class, world champions. Everyone's going to know. It's going to be very clear that this is not a secondary brand.
I appreciate that. I guess a final question on that, maybe for Dana. I mean, right now, I think you pretty much have to fight in the UFC to be considered the best in the world. So do you ever envision a day where a guy could be a Strikeforce champion and be, the best fighter in his weight class?
Yeah, it's possible. Absolutely. We're going after the best talent available. And the thing is, I've always said this, and I will always say this till the day I die. There's only one way to find out who's better, and that's the fight. I mean, that's the only way to find out.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Our next question comes from the line of Dave Meltzer with Yahoo Sports.
Yeah, a couple of questions here. One is this is for Scott, I guess. As far as Miesha Tate defending her championship against whoever it would be, is there kind of a time frame and kind of an idea of the direction that you're going in that? Because I mean, there's been a lot of speculation as far as her next opponent and when it would be, and kind of the deal with that 135-pound division.
Yeah, right now, Dave, that fight, Miesha's next date and her next opponent have not been determined yet. But that's something that we'll sit down with Sean in a real soon fashion here and get that date and find out, because I think that there's going to be a fight out there with Ronda at some point that's going to be very exciting. And Ronda wants to get down to the 135 weight class, which I saw the other day, and she looked fantastic. She looks like she's training and trying to get down there. And then, Ronda told me, she said, look, I'm not looking to just stay at 135. I want to take a couple fights down there, and then I want to go up and fight Chris Cyborg at 145. So, we have a potential star here in Ronda that, has a great background in Olympic judo, getting her MMA fights in. She's doing very well. And I think that, we're going to put her in some big fights that she wants to be in. And I think Miesha, whether she fights Ronda first or, in a couple more fights, I eventually think that fight will happen at some point.
Okay, and also, I wasn't clear on this, but are all of the shows, the Strikeforce shows, are they all going to be on Saturday nights, and it's all going to be with Showtime Extreme running prelims and then Showtime running like the last 4 or 5 fights? Is that kind of how that's going to be structured?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
That's the plan.
Our next question comes from the line of Ariel Helwani with NBCSports.com.
Hello again, guys. Just wondering, this for Dana or Scott, will the Strikeforce fighters have the opportunity to win fight night bonuses like their UFC counterparts?
I will say, I don't have those answers yet, but I would have to say yes.
All right, and you talked about the women's division, arguably still the most famous name in women's MMA, Gina Carano. Any idea if she will be returning at some point?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what she's up to or what she's doing. Scott, do you know?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think Steven would be the best to speak to that, because
as those of you who read my bio, back in my former life when I was an attorney, I was Gina's attorney. Gina, at heart, is a fighter. Whether she acts in a dozen movies or one, she will always be a fighter at heart, and she'll always have that genuine desire, to fight. So it would not surprise me at all to see her, back in MMA.
And I will say this, and the follow-up on that with Steven is, she has a movie coming out sometime in January, the Steven Soderbergh film. 22nd. Okay, so there you go.
A phenomenal movie, by the way. Not to plug it, but reviews have been amazing. She's incredible talent, in and out of the ring.
Yeah, it's got a ton of big stars in it, so that's going to come out, and then after that movie comes out, we'll sit down, we'll talk to her, and Steven's going to persuade her to get back in the cage real soon.
Yeah, part of my Showtime deal, right?
Yes, exactly.
And just one last question. This would be for Dana. Yesterday there was a report that Fabricio Werdum was coming back to the UFC to fight Roy Nelson on Super Bowl weekend. Is that correct?
I don't know. Who told you that, Ariel?
I believe it was reported first by MMAWeekly.com.
Oh, so we didn't put a statement out saying that.
No, that's why I was trying to get the confirmation.
Oh, okay. Well, if we did, we would have put a statement out, and I would have already talked to you.
All right, I'll take that as a no.
Any other questions on things that I didn't announce? No?
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Darnell Mason with MMA Hawaii.
Thank you very much. All of my questions have been answered. Hey, good luck with the builder, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Tom Nago with FifthRound.com.
Hi, guys. I guess this question is either for Dana or for Scott. Just to clarify if I heard correctly, the Grand Prix heavyweight champion or winner will be crowned, and then they'll take on another top-tier 265-pounder after that, and then you'll do away with the division completely? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. If that's the case, I was just wondering, after crowning or after winning the tournament, what's the point in even having them fight another fighter after that?
Well, that was what Showtime wanted. Showtime wanted to have their Grand Prix finish, then have the Grand Prix winner fight one more time on Showtime. I think they're looking at it that they made this investment in this heavyweight tournament, and they wanted to have another heavyweight fight before the division went away. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
I'll let them answer this question on their own.
Sorry, Dana. From the Showtime perspective, it just felt incomplete. We didn't sort of carry this to a conclusion. Obviously, we've started this heavyweight tournament. We want to carry it through and sort of put a conclusion and an exclamation point on it.
Okay, thanks.
Our next question comes from the line of James Bryden with Sportsnet.
Hi there. I don't know if you can answer this question right now, but just for our Canadian viewers, where will these shows be on in Canada, do you know?
Yeah, this is Scott. It's going to be on Super Channel up in Canada. I think we're currently broadcasting there now, and that relationship looks like it's going to continue.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, they do. I just was wondering if it was going to continue for the next year. Great. And you're going to get rid of the heavyweight division, and you said you're going to focus on the lighter classes. Will you be continually evaluating the divisions in between? So, for example, maybe down the line, the light heavyweight will go away, kind of like how divisions went away a couple at a time with the WEC?
This is Scott. I mean, we have good depth in all the other weight classes, and I think that Sean's done a great job in acquiring new talent, some really good up and coming guys, and we're going to keep building the weight classes that we're going to promote. So we're going to be fine, with those other weight classes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Operator, we have time for just one more question, then we'll let the guys go and let Scott get back to that press conference in San Diego.
Our next question comes from the line of Karen Bryant with MMA Heat.
Hey guys, nice to talk to all of you. I have a question basically for you, Scott, and for Dana. Obviously everybody's talked about on this call about if Strikeforce is going to be a sort of a feeder league to the UFC, and I guess I'm curious why that would be such a problem. AAA ball is great. People aspire to get there, to get to the next step. So in terms of it, maybe it just seems like a pejorative statement. I don't know, but what's actually so wrong about it being a feeder league?
I'll take that one first, okay. And I'll let any of the other guys want to answer. There's nothing wrong with being a feeder league, but that's not what this thing is designed to be. What we're doing, Karen, like I said earlier, is we're going after the best talent out there that we can possibly find. I mean, watch and see what we do over the next year with Strikeforce, and you watch the talent that's built over there. We're not looking at that. A feeder league to me, the definition of feeder league would be when guys lose. You lose your 3 or 4 in a row, you go back down to the minor leagues, meaning, you go back down to Strikeforce and you have to win some fights and then we bring you back up. No, when you lose in the UFC, you lose 3 or 4, you go somewhere else and you fight. Now, Strikeforce is going to be looking for the best guys available in the world in every one of these weight divisions and building guys up into contenders and winning titles exactly like we do in the UFC. So it's not going to be a feeder league. You know, you're going to have the knuckleheads that are going to want to say, oh, this is the feeder league, I don't care. It's not a feeder league. It's not going to be built like a feeder league, and it's not, trust me when I tell you, it's going to be the furthest thing from a feeder league. Anybody else want to chime in? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Scott. I mean, if you look at the history of our relationship that we've had with Showtime, it actually started in 2007. And if you look at the fighters that have come across the network and in our events, I mean, you know, it's far from a feeder league. I mean, we've had some of the world's best fighters. We've had some great fights. We've hit record-breaking ratings, and we've had the opportunity to build new stars. So, you know what? I don't think that's a fair statement.
Okay, and then to that end of building the stars, I know, you know, with the Fox deal for the UFC, there's so many new programs and so many new opportunities to highlight the talents and show them off in this light and that light. So are there designs on building, I don't know if you would do an Ultimate Fighter type thing for Strikeforce, or what kind of ancillary program are you going to put together to try to make those guys' names more household?
This is Scott. I mean, you know what? That's all in dialogue. I mean, like you know, Dana said earlier, this thing came across. You know, in the last 3-4 weeks, it got really heated and it got done. And you know, I'm sure we can have that conversation sometime in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, the exciting part about it from the Showtime perspective is the ability to sort of be creative and get in a room with Scott and Dana and the entire Strikeforce and Zuffa team, and to talk about stuff like that. You know, everything's on the table at this point. We're just going to open the doors and be as creative and aggressive as we can.
Great. All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Dana, Scott, Steven. I want to thank the press for being on the call. Obviously.